Kelly?
Penny.
The best I can come up with today. I'm sorry. I'm already in some wine.
I know, it's hard.
I tried.
Yeah,
Tried my best.
it's great.
This is a good episode today, though.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Well, should we just jump right into our wine?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Do you want to talk about
Mhm.
yours first?
Yeah, I mean, like, I kind of dropped the ball on this one, and it's the best one for me to not be dropping balls. I normally,
You and
you
dropping
guys-
balls is a dangerous thing.
yeah, I'm usually real good at handling balls.
Well, apparently you're not.
Hey, I said usually.
Well, this time.
Today, I know. I thought I had a whole bunch of wine left from when you bought a bunch.
I know. Where did it all go?
Apparently, I drank it.
That's a lot of wine.
That was a lot of wine.
Well, good work.
We drank a lot, I guess. Anyway, so I thought I had a whole bunch here, and then I realized I did not. So I had to go to my just regular reserves and pick something, and I don't have anything themed, but whatever.
Her regular
So-
reserved. You know how everybody has one of those
I
in their
just
house.
like 2021 Chariot red wine. That's all it says. And then it has a little Roman numeral 7 in the O. I don't understand what that is. Just like a red blend. It's just kind of there. It's an okay
Ooh,
wine.
okay, do your test on it.
I'll do all my testing.
You're surely with your
Okay.
2 fingers. It's always
So
better with
wait,
2.
first we gotta look at it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I'm not excited about this wine, so it's just there. A little bit
There
of
really
legs.
isn't anything on this wine.
No, there's not. There's some legs happening.
Okay, taste it. I want to see what you taste. Remember, nose and mouth.
I know how to smell wine, Penny.
I'm just.
I just try to smell the microphone.
Yeah, sure. You know how to smell wine, Kelly.
There's some cherry and some vanilla.
Mm.
It's not one you would talk to your girlfriends about the next day.
It would have to be a really good blowjob to talk about your girlfriends for the next day.
Well, I mean, some of the other ones we would talk about the next day.
Yeah, that's true. It's like mocha smell to it too.
Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like, meh. Like it's you could, blowjob wise, it's one of those, it depends on,
I would spit that one.
it's just kind of there.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Get water after that one.
If the package it came in was real nice,
It would have to be like a third, fourth glancer, kind of.
third, fourth glancer,
Yeah, not
that's
like
like a first glance and you can't take your eyes off of it type of package.
Yeah. It would have to have a lot of good packaging for that one.
Mm-hmm.
He has to change his diet. Kind of.
Yeah.
All right. Should we move on to mine?
It's not ideal. Yeah.
Well, mine, I did my homework on this one. And
Yeah.
because we're talking about Ireland a lot today, I looked up the most popular wine in Ireland, and it's a Sauvignon. Is that it right, Kelly? A Sauvignon Blanc, 120. So I gave it a shot, and it is pretty good, honestly. It says crisp and youthful with concentrated aromas of citrus blossom and peach.
Mm.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah.
I have
You
to swirly.
look at it
Okay.
first.
Oh,
look
yeah.
at it first.
I'm gonna get yelled at. It's
Mhm.
very there's bubbles in it. It's a light color. I can smell the peach for sure.
I smell. Mm-hmm.
That sounds good.
That smells really.
It does. Sounds a little too good after this spitter wine.
I know. This smells a lot better than mine.
Okay, I'm gonna do the Swisher test. Ooh, you got the citrusy in your cheeks,
Uh-huh.
and peach on your tongue. Yeah,
great.
it was good. This is a swallower. I don't even care what the bottle looks like.
Oh, no, you
they're
don't
obviously
need
on
to-
a very nice diet. I would
Mhm.
down that
Yeah.
one in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Done.
winner for sure.
Yeah,
You totally kicked mine's ass.
yeah, it did. We'll jump right into our interview with Jessica, which is awesome and so much fun.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's our A Daughter Forged in Fire, and it's Celtic mythology. So why we have all of our Irish stuff, and especially for St. Patrick's Day. March. Yay! What?
Could be great.
Yay!
All right, we're gonna jump in.
Here's Jessica. We're here with Jessica. We're gonna do her book is I'm gonna be real now for a second.
Boy.
No, just her book's about like welcoming St. Patrick's Day. Her book is all like Irish Celtic mythology. So we've got some Baileys to welcome Jessica here, and
Jessica!
yay, and her Irish Celtic story. Woo!
Yeah.
Cheers! Cheers!
Cheers! What is the
Cheers.
Sláinte,
Sláinte?
which
Sláinte.
means to your health.
All right, let's talk about your book if you're ready.
Sure.
Mhm.
I should probably like actually get the physical copy of it. Like,
Okay,
wow, I'm
We
so
have ours
unprepared.
here.
Yeah, we're ready.
Yay! Wait,
it is
which
a
way do I go?
beautiful cover.
Oh, you do have it.
We do.
Aw.
It's so pretty.
Yeah, go ahead and get it if
Isn't
you
it?
want to.
Yeah, this is it.
Oh, it's so pretty. This cover and like the feel of it. Did you get to pick the texture of the book?
So it's like you could pick between shiny and matte, and I've never really been a fan of like shiny covers, so I just chose matte because I'd seen a few on the market that I liked, but I didn't know it was going to come out and like feel like that. Like that's what everyone's always like, oh, it's so soft.
Yeah, I know. I just like to pet your book. It is very
Well,
cool.
thank you.
Who designed the cover of this? Because it's amazing.
It is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So it's from a designer named Crayfigs Design. They do book cover design, and so obviously, sorry, I told you I ramble. But I've actually picked this one out of a pre-made that I happened to see on her Etsy shop. And I just saw the character on the front and I was like, that is Rhea. Like it was a little bit different at the time in the design. It's my main character, Rhiannon. And so she totally customized it for me and added some things and just kind of like put a lot of movement and elements into it. And so I really love how it turned out.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about the book? We like to ask authors to tell us about the book so we don't give anything away. Because we go kind of off the track. So we're going to let you tell us what it's about.
So are we doing spoilers or no spoilers?
It's up to you if you want to do spoilers or not.
Okay, so this book has a lot of twists and turns, so I will do my best. I always try to kind of start off doing my best to not do any spoilers, but this book is so funny because their authors are always like, when someone asks you to tell them about your book, it's always like I know, like what? It's kind of like when you get that question, all rational thoughts just kind of like empty from your mind. But this book is sort of based on a few different storylines. So the premise of the book itself, in terms of like the symbolism, I wanted to branch out and do a fantasy trilogy that really follows like self-discovery and learning and cultivating your inner magic. And so it starts off, we're following a character named Rhiannon who has sort of lived her life in solitude for a very long time. And she's not really sure why that's been the path of her life or why things have turned out the way they have. But, we have our inciting incident. So things happen and she's sort of like thrown into this very rapidly changing world that she lives in. And she comes from an ancient race of mythical people from ancient Ireland. These legends actually come from the Bronze Age, called the Tuatha Dé Danann. And so the reason I really felt passionate about writing about them specifically is that, first of all, I'm a nerd and I just love mythology. But
Kelly.
I was so excited about all of this.
I
was like, this is all real mythology she's writing about. It's all great.
It is. And it's an original story. And a lot of times people are like, was it a retelling? It's not necessarily a retelling at all, but I use a lot of the symbolism behind these characters. And one thing that really kind of prompted this idea in my mind is that I hear and see things about the Fae all the time. Like a lot of fantasy books are like the Fae this, the she this, what have you, but no one ever actually talks about where they came from. And the origin stories of the Fae come from Bronze Age Ireland when we talk about mythological cycles of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to write a story about the origins of the Fae and how this race of mythical beings they started to clash with mortals. And so in this story, Rhiannon meets Rowan, who is a mortal blacksmith, and their destinies are sort of like thrown together and entwined a little bit. And they start on this journey together in a very ever-changing world and find out a lot about themselves, find out even more about each other. And they meet other characters along the way that sort of help to push the story along in the sense that everyone is kind of like pulled into this very whirlwind of a changing environment as mortals clash with these magical beings. And it's sort of like, if you guys have seen Lord of the Rings, in the end, when they kind of talk about we're shifting from the age of magic to the age of men, it kind of feels like that's the world that they're living in.
Yeah.
And so how they're dealing with that and how they're mitigating that.
This is amazing talking to you after reading this book, because like so many pieces are just kind of like clicking together. It's
Aww.
yeah, no, this is well, it was an amazing book. I really loved so much how you went from I won't give anything away, but you go from the two characters that you talked about, but then you go to another character and her history, and like you wrote it so well, and like
Thank you.
her feelings through it, and like what she experienced. Like I felt like I was there, like reading it. Like it was so good. And then you like you felt angry for her the whole time, and then like how she just, and then she comes back, and it's like the present time, and how she.
I of course loved her because I knew right away who she was.
Of
who
course
she
you did.
is.
You knew.
Yeah, and I was like, yes, I love her. But
yeah,
anyway,
it was.
Yeah, that was sort of like that moment. And to be honest with you, that was not something I set out to do in the beginning of the story. Like, I had these ideas of Anya, which is the character, for the people who are listening, that we're speaking of, and she's very much representative of the Morrigan from Celtic mythology. But I sort of initially imagined her as just being kind of like the supportive character. And I never really intended for her to have such a central role and sort of make the story structure unconventional like that in the middle of the book. But it's kind of just happened. She was just kind of like, listen, bitch, I'm here and this is what's happening. And it was kind of crazy because, like, for context, I'm pagan. And so I have a personal sort of connection to the Morrigan in my own life. And so I kind of saw this unfolding and I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. One
Thank
thing
you.
I know, I'm gonna just go on all my favorite parts, but we'll take part of
I love this so much.
Like even when she was on like the beach and the guy comes up to her, that she grabs his heart out, and how she's like completely naked, and how he's like, she didn't even cover herself. And I'm like, man, I want that kind of confidence.
So she's just like, yeah.
She was just like, I am here and fuck you all.
I love how it was so like the entire book was so empowering for women,
really
and like women characters.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the things that heavily influenced that is that in that cycle of mythology in the Bronze Age of Ireland, women really were revered that way because whenever they would have battles and things like that. So they have this whole process called the cycles of mythology, where we have all these different invaders coming to Ireland, cycle of invasions, where they're sort of like competing for how, like, who's going to own the land. And even when the Romans came in and sort of clashed with the Celtic warriors during that time period, one of the things that they record in history that I think is so awesome is they're like, I would much rather face a man on the battlefield than his woman, or than a woman, because they were so highly revered as warriors. And just there was this time in history, and I talk about this a lot with my friends when we talk about just the symbolism of the rising of the divine feminine. We talk about how before the 16th century, like pre-16th century, there was this idea that women were the sole bringers and givers of life in a lot of different cultures, and even into ancient history. And that was sort of taken away. But even back then, this would have been actually very realistic in their own culture, because that story of Anya and Dagda actually came from an actual retelling of the Morrigan and the Dagda's coupling at a river in Ireland, which is still a landmark to this day.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, like basically in the legend of what we have recorded in history. And there's not a lot of recording of this because they were just famously very poor record keepers in terms of writing. But basically, they sort of think of coupling or sex or, a relationship between two people as not just, I am the female, you are the male, or, once I submit to you, that's kind of it. It's more transactional. So there's a couple of different times in the story that you'll kind of see that throughout the trilogy. And that whole scenario came from when the Dagda needed military intel, because the Morrigan is a goddess of warfare, and prophecy. And basically he was like, I need to know when the Fomorians are going to invade in the real legend. So he goes to find her in this river, and she's bathing and she's naked, and she knows he's there the whole time. And she's like, yeah, what do you want? And he's like, I need intel. And she's like, that's cool. I need to get laid. So basically it's kind of like this transactional thing that happens, and it's more of like a coupling of equals is kind of how they talk about it in the translation. So that's sort of where that was loosely based from, and those themes kind of permeate throughout the trilogy. And I don't know, I really love that.
Yeah, it's good.
There's one part in the book when in the beginning when they're kind of like reading through, Rowan is reading his father's journal and talking about some of the practices of the Tua, and that was something that was very important in their culture, is that they couldn't really understand when they started interacting with mortals why women were subjected to marriage like a piece of property. They were like, how can you look at women this way when we wouldn't actually have life without women? Like, they are the givers and the bringers of life. How could you not see the divinity in that? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
It's super awesome.
Bringing life into this world is hard work.
Like, I bring souls into this dimension through my pelvis. Like, watch your tone. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
100%.
Awesome.
Yeah, the whole thing was just, and we were talking about like when we first started reading it, I was just like, I just feel like I just have like my little like Celtic music in the background just playing while I'm reading it. Like, it just felt so like, I don't know, very just, I don't know. I just really liked it.
I told Kelly too, we were
you.
texting a little bit back and forth while reading it, and I was like, it's just like beautifully written.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like, it's very like soothing how you wrote it. It wasn't just, I don't know how, I can't think of a good,
I know, like
word
that's why
for
we're
it.
just like, but it was very, like, I'm just like,
Like, there's a lot of stuff
like,
going on, but
yeah.
it was very like relaxing reading it.
Thank
If that
you.
makes any sense.
Yeah. And the
I
action and
wanted to
everything
write
is
like a
really
cozy
good.
fantasy. So I wanted to have cozy elements in.
Oh, it was definitely like, you could
Mhm.
just snuggle up. Like, that's how I read it. I don't think I could have read it just without like snuggling up and reading this book.
Yeah.
It was definitely, it is,
Mhm.
that's a perfect description. It was a cozy read. It was
Yeah.
a cozy fantasy.
But then it is like very gory and stuff too, but it was like all so well done, you know?
And
Thank
everything,
you.
like, as you're going through the book, then I start to question every little thing, because I'm like, is this going to come back up? I'm going to try and be Kelly on this one. Is this going to come back around?
Yeah. And I, of course, was getting so excited because I was like, ooh, here's this legend. Here's this myth. Here's this. Like, I got like all excited about everything. Like, I was just like, here it is. Here it is. Here's this. Here's this. So it was like, I was super giddy about the whole thing.
I love that the female main character in here was a little sassy and definitely put everybody in their place. Like, I loved it so much. We need more women like that in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Rhea does bring the sass. She's like, she literally brings that fire element. She's like, okay.
Yeah, and she's like, if you don't like me, whatever. Like,
yeah.
Like, this is who I am. I love it so much. How did you create these characters? Like, how did you develop them? Because they are very unique.
Thank you. I think that definitely looking into the representation of these deities throughout the Celtic pantheon really helped with that. Just kind of in the different symbolism that they represented. But in a way, like, as a writer, and I've talked to other writers who've experienced this, sometimes when you get into the creative flow and you're typing and you're really like zoned in the story and it's progressing, they sort of begin to adopt a personality and a mind of their own. And after a while, when that develops, you can then, a lot of writers, and I did this as well, will sort of make like character profiles. Like, I have a little workbook that I would write down, like, Rhea would like this, or Rhea smells like this, or, you know, she would do and eat and drink this. Like, it sort of helps to like keep their personalities true to who they are, because there is that moment of fear that you get when you're like, I don't want to write a scene or an act where they're doing something that's totally out of pocket in character for them. So, yeah, I mean, to be honest, they just kind of evolved on their own. I know that sounds completely psychotic, but other writers, I think, can relate that whenever these characters do develop, they start to create just this own personality in the story.
I love how Rowan just like loves to embarrass her just enough to make her uncomfortable.
Their
like,
little back and forth is so cute.
Oh, I love it. Like, he just put just enough to put her back a little bit.
Yeah. She needs that, right? Like she
Yeah.
needs, like, you know, and I enjoy witty banter in stories. I always have, especially fantasy. Like when there's a sassy female lead, like I love witty banter.
Yep. Oh, you did a great job. It was perfect.
Yeah, they're really, really good together.
Yeah,
And they're really good together. I'll
yeah,
tell you what.
they are. It was a good slow burn. Like there was definitely like times where I'm like, it's
there was just enough. I was like, here it is, but I was also like, I fucking know because it's the first book in a fantasy trilogy.
Yeah, it takes a minute.
That this is not gonna. I was like, something's gonna happen. Yeah,
and I love it's hard sometimes for me to read fantasy books because you have to create this whole new world in your head as you're reading. But yours was really easy to understand. So it wasn't just like so complex that you really have to be like, okay, who's on what side
what's
and
happening
what's on
here and who's doing what, and
So it was so easy to understand and flowed so well.
Yeah, you did a really good job explaining, I think, where it wasn't like, because you do have to get so much info in there in the first book, but I thought yours really like made it easy to understand.
Yeah, it wasn't so complex that you have to go back and reread it because you missed something.
Or like look at the map and be like, what's happening now? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I know, I don't want people to have to reference. And that's the hard part with fantasy is that sometimes it can be a really big challenge not to get too info dumpy, where you're like trying to convey what's needed to understand the stakes of the world that they're in without being like, okay, everyone sit down, class is beginning. Like, this is what happens, you know? So, and a criticism I've gotten of this book before is that, you know, it is pretty small compared to a lot of fantasy because a lot of fantasy books, they are chunky. And I do love a good chunky fantasy book, but I have a hard time when I'm writing, just writing for fluff. And I want to keep the story moving along. So I feel like with this one, I was just kind of like, okay, I got to say what I got to say. Like,
no, I think it was perfect.
I like that it was just like, you put in like just the essentials basically. And like, like why fill it in with like 3 chapters of like backstory where people are like, okay, but let's get back to like what's happening.
Right.
Because you definitely filled it. You gave us a lot of history in there.
You did.
You know?
And that it was all character development too. Like it was so well entwined. Like it wasn't just like event character building. You guys
are so sweet. Y'all are making me actually feel like a legit writer today.
You are a legit writer. It was great. We loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I really do want to know what your thoughts are on sex within fantasy novels and how, what's your thoughts on that?
So I think that it can be, it's an interesting topic to talk about because from the fantasy books that I've read just over the years, sometimes it sort of falls into a couple of different categories. It's kind of funny. A friend and I were discussing this the other day, but sometimes I feel like there's this potential in fantasy where and romance is romance, right? But sometimes it's like the crescendo of the story is, yay, they finally have sex. And we love that, right? We love a good sex scene. I mean, that's what I live for. But it's kind of like when that happens, now they're suddenly able to read each other's thoughts. They're bonded mates. They know everything the other one's thinking. No one gets on anyone's nerves anymore. They're perfect communicators. And so I think that what I wanted to do differently in this story was like, that's not real, you know, that's not like realistic. Not that every fantasy has to be realistic, but, in the story going forward, we're going to see Rowan and Rhea still bust each other's balls. Like,
good.
Even though they had a great time and will continue to have great times. But then going back to that, you know, topic of the sacred symbolism behind sex, almost as a form of divination, I think that there's so much opportunity in fantasy to tap more into that. And I want to do that going forward. It's like you sort of see like in a lot of fantasy books, when the act of sex happens, it's almost like the female character is losing something, but what would it be like if she gained something? So like that's why I purposely made Rhea's fire magic come out because of that energetic exchange that happened when her and Rowan finally, you know, did the deed or what have you. And I love the idea of that, of like, you know, sex can be transactional. And that's such a taboo topic, especially in books. But there's nothing wrong with sex being transactional. It doesn't always have to be about love. It doesn't always have to be about marriage. Sometimes it can just be about having a good time, you know? And I think that sometimes there's a hesitancy to incorporate that into fantasy because it's supposed to be just deeply romantic, right? Like we get a lot of contemporary romances that I also really enjoy where it's like, yeah, she just needs to fuck and he just needs to fuck, and that's cool because it's contemporary, but it doesn't always translate into fantasy. And I think that there's still an opportunity for that, especially whenever you like put magic in there. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You know
and
what I
like
mean?
the mates and bonds, and you're right.
Yeah.
Like in
It's
in
always
fantasy,
that.
it's so much more
And then they're
deeper.
like eternally bonded, and
yeah, like sometimes you just want to
Right.
fuck.
Yeah,
And like,
exactly.
This is great.
Yeah, get your rocks off, man.
Yeah.
That's what's up, you know? Like, we've got to make it okay for fantasy women to just, like, need to get laid sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we've all been there.
When is your next book coming out?
So it's tentatively, it's going to be May 2024.
Okay.
I should have it to ARC readers by April, but I'm actually working on releasing here in the next couple of weeks a special edition hardback of Daughter, and it's going to contain a bonus chapter, which is chapter 1 of book 2.
Ooh.
So it will sort of like address that cliffhanger bit just a little bit, and we'll get a little more context as to what life is like for all of them about 6 months after this all goes down.
To leave us on a cliffhanger was not okay.
Yeah,
That
which-
was not okay.
It's such a cliffhanger. Like,
I know. I was a little mad at you that it just stopped.
My friend read it. She was one of my beta readers, and she texted me, and all she said in capitals was, "You bitch."
Yes!
Like,
I
sorry.
agree with your friend on this one. I was like, it cannot end here. Like, as soon as I went to the next thing and it was like the done page, I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's so funny.
For someone that's writing their first book, and you did an amazing job on
Oh,
your
sorry.
first
oh yeah,
book.
I know. We have
What
bad
is your
times.
advice for someone that's like thinking of just writing their first book and is kind of humming and hawing over it?
I really think just do it and don't put yourself on too much. So it's kind of like a happy medium of not putting yourself on too much of a timeline of, oh, I've got to have this done by this date and this date, because sometimes that can impede the creative flow, but also trusting yourself and trusting your story and that it's going to unfold on its own time. And some people, it takes them, I met someone at my signing the other day, actually, who was like, yeah, I've been working on this book for like 10 years. And that happens with some authors. And sometimes people can crank out books in, 2 months. And whatever that looks like for you, I think my advice would just be to do it and get yourself networked with people who are pursuing the route of publishing that you want to pursue, whether that's traditional publishing or self-publishing. I'll say for myself, like just being able to network with a lot of really amazing indie authors in the industry really helped me to navigate maybe mistakes that were made in the past by others. Like people are like, no, learn from my mistakes. Use this publisher, not this one. This is going to be a better print quality than this company, that type of thing. So I think that we are very fortunate to be in the indie author community because there is such a support there.
There it really is. Like the indie authors, just so encouraging of each other and want each other to do their best and want to just help and not step on somebody else.
They're so supportive of each other.
Yeah,
I love it.
It is very cool.
And that's how I feel too. And recently just cultivating the Writers Roundtable live chats on my page. That's something I was passionate about because I met so many authors that, connected with me on Instagram and either through the story or just through being in the writer community had all these questions like, well, how did you learn how to do XYZ? And I thought, you know what, let's put together a space where we can all come together and talk about this. And anyone, whether they've been writing for a long time or haven't even published their first book yet, we can all get together and sort of bounce ideas off each other. So it's kind of like, again, nerd, but the Arthurian round table where like Arthur's round table was there's no head, right? There's no big eyes, little U's. Like we can all bring something to the discussion and we can all collaborate and work collectively.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
We loved the book. Everybody should definitely buy this book. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So you can download it really easily. Yeah. I'm definitely going to go and leave a review on there.
And you should buy an actual copy of it because it's very nice to touch.
And you just want to pet it. Like,
it's nice. I got to get it right in my view. It's nice to touch.
Thank you. I'm actually about to run a sale on signed copies on my site. So the retail value of the book is $17.99, but I'm about to put them up today actually for $15.99.
Ooh.
So,
Yeah.
but they're available at any bookstore as well. So I enabled it for global distribution. So it's in any major bookstore really around the world.
Oh,
So,
that's amazing. Yeah, definitely read this
Yeah.
one. This one's a good one. And you can tell that there's so much more to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna be watching for the ARC copy. I'm so
Yes.
excited. That was
thank you.
No, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready for our blush questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You told us you're okay with being surprised.
She's
Yes.
she's pretty, as I called her the other week. I called her, what did I call you, diabolical? I think
Yeah,
I
she did. She called me diabolical. I know. I
That's
really
high
like
praise.
Yeah, I kind of like that word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where is the craziest place you've had sex?
Oh, God. Oh, man. I think it was like a random closet floor, which sounds totally high school.
No.
But I just vividly remember like the carpet burns. And but I don't know why that just sticks out in my mind of like the carpet burns. So I think it was more of like the position I was in than the actual environment. But that's the first thing that pops in my head.
What's the position? Do you want to share?
Yeah, please share. With all these carpet burns, I want to know.
Definitely had road burn on my knees. I'll say that.
Oh, we can all put the pieces together.
Right.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Let's go.
This one is so awkward, I think, for everybody. Tell us about your first kiss.
Oh, boy. You know what's funny is like my first kiss was
real
so
kiss or like elementary
memorable.
school kiss?
Like your first like real kiss.
Oh, man. It's so funny because I've had this question before, like just in, group of girlfriends kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad, but I'm like, honestly, it was so unmemorable that I have a hard time pulling it up in my brain. I know who it was with, but like, that's the sad part is I honestly don't remember anything about it because it was just so shitty.
They normally are very bad. Tell us a story about after you've had a whole bottle of wine.
Oh, God. Okay, I gotta think for a second. That's a good one, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's some crazy stuff.
We've got some good ones.
Oh, Lord. Man. So the sad part about me and how nerdy I can sometimes be, one of the wildest nights when we had a whole bottle of wine, my friend and I, so she had come over and we were watching a documentary. And like, that's how we get drunk. Like, let's watch a documentary and drink a whole bottle of wine. So I don't know, like what just sticks out is like after we finish the whole bottle of wine, you know how it is when you get drunk. You're just like, I know all the answers to the universe.
Yep.
And I now know all the secrets of God.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, this was a very like speculative type documentary. And so then we just like spent hours unloading all of our conspiracy theories about the world. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, what kind of shit did I say?
You're like, I've solved everything. And then forgot it.
Let's do an Instagram live that's called Jessica Drinks a Whole Bottle of Wine
Let's
and
do
What
it.
Happens Next.
Yes. I'm in all the way. When are we doing this? Let's put a date on it right now.
I'm only doing it if you guys can join me.
Yes.
Oh, it would be so
100%.
fun.
Let's
do it. Let's do it. We're in.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much. You're awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me. Like it really means a lot to me.
It means a lot to us that you took this time. I seriously cannot believe this is your first book. Like, I am blown away. That's amazing.
It's so good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great job.
Making my heart bust with love.
Keep going because we're all eating it up. So please keep going.
And thanks for all the love you give to us too.
Yeah, seriously.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
And our jingle.
I'm going to be y'all's number one hype girl. I'm telling you.
Aww.
Like I tell everybody about y'all's podcast.
Oh, I love you.
Thank you so
I
much.
love it.
We're going to put your jingle everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
I love it
Help the
so
world.
much. I love
My
it.
jingle. I love you guys.
Oh, we love
we
you.
love you
so
too.
much.
So much love.
Mwah. You're the best.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye, my friends. Bye. Do you like talking about fucking and wine? Blush.
Jessica's awesome.
She is. She's great.
She is. She's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So buy her book, download it, read it. It was great.
We'll
We
have a
loved
link
it.
to it on our site.
Yeah. Do it all. Do it all.
Do it all, bitch. I mean, we've had some wine. Let's
Yeah,
go.
we have.
All right.
So join us next week.
It'll be great.
Do that. Do it all.
Mhm.
Do it all.
Bitch.
Kelly really likes the word bitch today. Oh, wait. You got to hold it from the
I
stem. part.
know. What
What
makes you
you
blush?
Ready? Ooh.
We like to talk about fucking and wine. Blush. Whatever Jessica says. We'll put Jessica in here instead of us.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Our new
Our
jingle.
new jingle.
Jingle, jingle, jingle.
Do you like talking about fucking and wine? Blush.
See you next week.